Hi, folks. It's Global Politics with Jim Martin. Today, I want to talk about nuclear power and its resurgence into the suite of potential energy solutions that could be coming up for us. Right now, 32 countries have nuclear reactors connected to their respective power grids, 33 if you include Taiwan. These provide about 9% of the world's electrical power. Just as a brief overview, nuclear power is the result of harvesting and refining of uranium, which is then placed into a power plant. A fission reaction within a containment vessel creates heat, which turns water into steam, which drives turbines, which produces electricity. A typical nuclear plant can run with minimal maintenance for 50 or 60 years, sometimes with refueling in there, depending on the design. For some time, nuclear power plant construction has been in a kind of stasis. The only construction that has occurred is to replace old plants with new ones. The reason for this is largely related to a handful of extremely notable accidents like Chernobyl and Fukushima and 3 Mile Island. Most of the newer nuclear plants are in China, but many new ones have sprung up in some unusual places like Argentina, Bangladesh, and Egypt even. For a long time, the world has relied on fossil fuels primarily for their energy needs. It's still kind of that way. World energy needs have been relatively stable for a long time also, or just gradually growing. That said, in modern industrialized countries, energy consumption is way up. And these needs will continue to grow as large data centers come online and multiply. And these are all over the place. And as artificial intelligence continues to grow, artificial intelligence requires a lot of energy. Primarily, these data centers and AI centers require cooling because of the density of the electronics that allow for things like ChatGPT queries to be processed. Just as an example, and in a somewhat related matter, if you do a ChatGPT inquiry, just one requires basically a bottle of water to cool the electronics necessary to do that. Water is a really key element in older nuclear designs too, and it's also one of the potential flaws that leads to potential safety concerns. When you have these nuclear reactors, they require that they be located next to a water source, and they use a lot of water. New designs that have emerged in the last 10 years or so use different methods to cool the reactor and transfer energy. Thorium and molten salt reactors are representative of these new sorts of designs. These new designs offer a great deal of promise. A company called TerraPower is building a new molten salt reactor in Wyoming that's expected to be finished by the end of the decade. The molten salt reactor design barely requires any water at all. And in fact, they've located this site on the grounds of an old coal plant. From what I understand of reading, I'm not a nuclear physicist, the safety margins are so much greater in molten salt and thorium reactors that these really alleviate any sorts of concerns. Obviously, with nuclear power and radioactivity, you're always going to have some safety concerns. That said, in the case of these reactors, those are minimized to the point of points of failure being extremely small. One of the reasons why these are so attractive is that they continually produce power for a really long period of time, and they produce a lot of it. The design that's being built in Wyoming also has a feature where, by the nature of the process itself, it allows them to actually store energy in the form of heat within that molten salt in a reservoir, thus allowing them to kind of act as a giant battery also. These sorts of designs, you're hearing more about them. There's some interest in modular reactors too. which are basically small-scale nuclear reactors that could go on the back of a semi-truck or something like that. Here in Nebraska, we've heard about some interest in that sort of thing, which would be potentially useful if you needed to dramatically increase the energy into a grid in a particular place. You just take it there and do it. I don't know how I feel about that, but that's another potential solution. Nuclear power is not a singular answer that's going to address all of our energy needs. We need a sustainable, ecologically balanced solutions to fossil fuels that, as fossil fuels become a lesser part of what we're doing, that nuclear, wind, and solar become more of a suite. It's going to be quite some time before energy solutions like natural gas and fossil fuels and coal really disappear entirely. But as that transition occurs, we've got to have something to fill in the gap. And the only really kind of game-changing approach would be nuclear, at least at this time. There's a lot of investment needed in this, and that is beginning to occur. But the simple fact is that nuclear power produces a lot more energy with dramatically less waste. I saw a YouTube piece a while back where they went out to the facility and walked all around this complex of 4 nuclear reactors. They were storing all of the waste on site on a huge concrete pad with large concrete silos. And that was they've been running this plant since the late 60s. And there was about 3/4 of a football field full of radioactive waste in these large containment vessels. That represents the entire amount of waste that came from that facility. That waste is going nowhere. It's sitting there, right there, ready for perhaps at some point when we figure this out, some kind of permanent safe storage solution. That's a whole other issue that really involves politics mostly. All of that is sitting right there. That's the waste from that plant for the last 55 years. When you think about fossil fuels, the waste that is produced by cars, natural gas plants, coal plants, everything else related to fossil fuels is in us because we breathe it in every day. It coats everything that we touch and every place that we go. If you really think about it like that, it makes it a lot more of an attractive proposition to use nuclear power to serve our energy needs than it does to continue to rely on fossil fuels. Again, a suite of things, I think, is the best answer. These solutions are real. People are investing money in them and trying to make them as safe as they possibly can to avoid some of those dramatic, tragic, albeit rare accidents. So I hope you found this interesting. If you like this kind of content, feel free to comment. Likes, shares, and subscribes are, of course, welcome. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.